G'day YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. If you look at some parts of the countryside with illuminated tunnel vision, it doesn't look too bad. However, if you zoom out, you can see how badly it's drying out. Pretty much all the trees which bounce back after the mega firestorm drought season of 2019-2020, and that drought started in 2018. They're all just shutting leaves off, letting them brown off. Cutting down the flax lily as sheet mulch has helped. Things are definitely worse on the other side of the fence, where the sheet mulching didn't happen. Crimson rosellas are hanging around. Not long ago they went and started trimming all the foliage on the tea tree, the Melaleuca alternifolia. Laying it on the ground as sheet mulch. Trimming the trees' need for water with less foliage with which to transpire. So it was kind of the crimson rosellas that inspired me to sheet mulch as extensively as I have, and walking away from the boundary fence. That's got to be 50 metres inside the boundary, and it's drying out and dying. Edge effect, I suppose they call that. So yeah, that's what's going on here. And I decided I was going to have to do something about it. So I decided to bite the bullet. I'm going to have to do to the dead branches just what I'm doing with the dead flax lily. And as you can see, the Melaleuca alternifolia, particularly here on the rock dome and the brick pile, it's all dying out too. Some of it is still standing, and it died out during the last drought. And yeah, some of it bounced back. But there's not a lot of water under rocks like this. So that's all got to be turned into sheet mulch. And the sheet mulch is going to be spread out on top of these rocks, and hopefully it'll cool the rock down, and maybe some of these, which have not yet totally died out, will survive. But meanwhile, it's the same theory as applied to the flax lily. While it's standing up, surrounded by air on all sides, this is fine, fully cured bushfire fuel. Now what it needs to become, instead of piles of sticks ready to burn, it needs to become wood chips. I think the wood chips are a lot less likely to go woof in a puff of flame than all that standing dead vegetation. So this is what it looks like after I've taken out all of the scary looking stuff and turned it into wood chips. And that's what's got to be done. It's absolutely terrible on the chainsaw. 15 minutes of being as careful as you possibly can, and you've basically blunted every tooth on the chain, and then repeated filings. I don't know why it's occurred, but it's put a feather edge on the teeth and they're bending in the wood. But anyway, I suppose I better show you the new toy. And I have already hacked it and pimped it. See the big wide wheelbase? That's not the way it was when I first purchased it. As supplied, it had these two little 10-inch wheels set up on a much tighter wheelbase. Oopsie, that's the way it should be. One of the many things that I thought I would never ever have an occasion to purchase was a 6.5 horsepower wood chipper. On which I have already put something like 6.5 hours trying to make this whole place less likely to immolate us. And everything's relative. But yeah, wood chips on the forest floor, 50% of their surface area is touching the ground, not the air. So less air, less oxygen. And like a newspaper lying flat on the ground, you can apply a blowtorch to the top of the newspaper and it doesn't burn. It chars and then one little layer of it flakes and puffs into flame. But all of that rubbish lying around here has been processed, put through the new toy. And of course, there's a hell of a lot yet to go. And the new machine supposedly can cope with anything up to 75mm diameter, but 1.5 hours in, one of the mounting bolts securing the engine base plate to the top of the shredder was sheared, I think it was sheared because it wasn't fully tightened at the factory. And when I put a big bit of wood in, the Kevlar drive belts that run from the motor to the shredder have come under extreme sudden tension, which has allowed the base plate under the engine and the top of the shredder to move with respect to each other in flexion and tension, and yeah, sheared the bolt. And as I said, I've given it a wider undercarriage because it really wasn't stable with its little tiny wheels that stopped for every rock they met. Set up so that you could fit inside a cardboard box and the wheels did not stick out any further than the edge of that fan housing. And on my country, it was an absolute prick of a thing to move. But I suppose the people in the suburbs use them on a bloody golf course, perfectly flat and smooth and level, or they use them on a concrete path. And they bring the rubbish to the machine, whereas I plan on bringing the machine to the rubbish and squirting out the wood chips right where they need to be. So there you go, now you know. Rip wood chip. Warbles Want a Lot the Greenie has purchased a wood chipper to try and turn the bushfire fuel bomb into sheet mulch. I don't know that it's going to work, but I know that making the effort will be better than doing nothing. Warbles On a Lot to YouTube. How's your drought going? Personally, I'm blaming it all on Barnaby Joyce. Until he joined the National Party, New England was getting at least average rain. Not the National Party, One Nation. He used to be in the National Party. Our sitting member, a National Party Member of Parliament, became a One Nation Member of Parliament. And since December last year, we're about 230 mils, probably closer to 300 mils by now, down on our long-term average rainfall for that part of the year. April was the driest April since 1942. As soon as we became a One Nation electorate, the rainfall switched off. I suppose a whole lot of long-term welded-on Barnaby Joyce voters whose grandfathers used to vote National Party and therefore they voted National Party, they've apparently been trained to vote Barnaby instead of voting National. So when Barnaby's gone to One Nation, they've moved with him. I may be living in an actual One Nation electorate. We'll find out next time there's an election. They don't believe in science. They don't believe that global warming is happening. They don't understand greenhouse effect, or they pretend not to. They've just won an electorate down in the Riverina, in the irrigation area, Farah. They've been elected on a platform of stopping water buybacks because they want to pump more water out of the river so they can have more prosperity in the main street when the irrigation industry blossoms and blooms again. You don't get an irrigation industry unless there's water in the river. You don't get water in the river unless it rains. Around here it's not raining. We've got a One Nation Member of Parliament. The Greenies are buying bloody wood chippers because the forest is dying. In 2003, in writing, I asked a fellow called Coperberg, when we got a 40 or 45 degree day with 50 or 80 kilometres an hour wind and 10% relative humidity and no subsoil moisture. And we got a fire coming at us. If there's no diesel for the fire trucks and there's no kerosene for the aerial firefighting, for the heli-tacs and the firebirds and the large air tankers and the reconnaissance planes and the radar and the fire mappers, how are we going to deal with that? And Koperberg said, pretty sure it was in writing, I wish I'd kept the letter, he said, we will cross that bridge if we come to it. A month or so ago, my son went to the group officers conference, regional conference in Coffs Harbour, and I primed him up to ask that same question. And the answer was, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. If has changed to when. The excited status of Norte Americano, having successfully disrupted 20-25% of the world's oil supply, having driven prices up through the roof. Quite literally, Australia is going into a super El Nino drought, probably a nasty bushfire season. I mean, you know, maybe it'll all get saved by a sudden gust of snow coming up from Antarctica, but last year they had a heat wave in the middle of winter where the temperature was 30 to 35 degrees above normal in Antarctica. Now, mind you, that means 4 degrees instead of 30 degrees below zero, but still, heat wave in Antarctica in the middle of winter. So yeah, while there's still petrol in the Bowser, I've got a wood chipper and I'm going to try and sheet mulch around this place in the faint hopes that the dew that I'm receiving, and today we had 0.3 of a millimetre worth of dew, in the hopes that the dew will soak in and last longer, and maybe once again this will be a little greenish spot and the big bad horrible fire will go around. But it's not looking bright. We haven't hit winter yet. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. What colour is your wood chipper? Ciao.